Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and today I'm going to be giving you guys some books and movies and TV shows to put you in the Halloween spirit. It is spooky season, it is my favorite time of the year, it is my favorite month of the year, so I am all smiles all the time. Last month I did a recommendations video for some cozy fall books, so today I thought I would give a recommendations video for some spookier fall books. And don't worry, all the books, movies, and TV shows on this list are Scaredy-Cat approved. If you guys have any books, movies, or TV shows you would like to add to this list, please feel free to leave them down below in the comments. I am always looking for some good things to watch and read this time of year, so don't be afraid to just give me a whole list of things you would like me to check out. Odds are I definitely will. So let's get started with this recommendations video. The first book I'm going to recommend to you is Middle Game by Seanan McGuire. This is the story of a journey of two twins named Roger and Dodger who aren't really human, but they're raised to believe that they are, when in reality they were essentially created by this mad alchemist who wants to use them to attain godhood. If that description was a little confusing and vague, that's because it's supposed to be. This book is definitely a complex one with time travel, alternate timelines, with violence and gore, so I definitely recommend first of all reading any trigger warnings just to be safe before you head into the book. But it's really a creepy atmosphere. You don't really know what's happening until the end. It's a book that is filled with suspense, and I think all of those aspects really make it perfect for this time of the year. The next book I'm going to recommend is House of Salt and Sorrow by Erin A. Craig. I reread this last month because I love this book. It is the story of a duke and his 12 daughters living on this remote island, but recently, in the past few years, these daughters have been dying off, and the people in the town believe this family is haunted. After recently burying one of his daughters, the Duke decides to hold this ball in order to find the rest of his girls' suitors, but his second oldest, now that the other girls have died, she doesn't think that these deaths are by accident. She thinks someone has been killing her sisters, and she goes on a quest to find out who did it and hopefully save her sisters from any future harm. If you like spooky atmospheres, if you like retellings, if you like ghost stories, those are all really great elements of this book. It is super spooky, super scary, and it's just a very dark, atmospheric, haunted fantasy book that I highly recommend if you are looking for something on the more horror side of spooky. But as I said before, I am a total scaredy cat, and if spooky books aren't your thing, if I was able to get through it, so can you. And I definitely think it's worth it to read this time of year. The next book I'm going to recommend is Kingdom of the Wicked by KERRI MANISCALCO. KERRI MANISCALCO also wrote the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. I adore that series. It is also really great to read this time of year, but I did it on my last year's spooky recommendations video, and I kind of wanted to switch things up this year, so I'm recommending this other series by KERRI MANISCALCO. So Kingdom of the Wicked is set in Sicily in the 19th century, and it focuses on Amelia and her family, who are strega, which I believe is the Italian word for witches. In Sicily, witches have to practice undercover, but when young witches are being hunted down and murdered, including Amelia's twin sister, Amelia has to reluctantly team up with one of the princes of hell named Rapp in order to solve the murders and hopefully save any witches from future harm. This is the perfect witchy book for October. I love the setting, I love the magic system, I love the hot princes of hell that are present throughout this book, and the next book in the series, which I believe is called Kingdom of the Cursed, and the next book is called Kingdom of the Cursed, that is coming out in October, so this is really a great time to read Kingdom of the Wicked, because then you'll be right and prepped to pick up the second book when it comes out. Once again, I just really loved this book. I read it so fast, I like flew through it. The characters are engaging, the magic is engaging, the mystery, the murder mystery aspect of it is just really wonderful. So I definitely think it's worth giving a try. So next up, I'm actually going to recommend an author for this type of the year. Aiden Thomas. So Aiden Thomas currently has 2 books released, and both are perfect for the spooky season. His debut novel, Cemetery Boys, follows Yadriel, who is a brujo who is trying to prove himself, and his family is not really accepting of his gender identity, so he really wants to prove himself as a real brujo. This book also follows Julian, who is recently deceased and is kind of the bad boy at Yadriel's school, so Yadriel agrees to help Julian find out how he was murdered, because Julian does not remember, and all the while as they grow closer and try to figure out this mystery, Yadriel finds himself being drawn to Julian and struggles with his feelings for his recently departed friend. This book is all about witches and magic. It has really great Latinx representation and really great trans representation, so I'd highly recommend this book for this time of the year. The other book by Aiden Thomas, which is also perfect for the spooky season, is Lost in the Neverwood, and this is a dark Peter Pan retelling. This book follows Wendy, and in Wendy's town, all these children start disappearing, and Wendy thinks it's related to the time that she was kidnapped or disappeared as a child, but she has no memory of the time that she was kidnapped. Things start becoming even more weird when a boy that Wendy only thought lived in her dreams shows up in her life, and the two of them work together to solve the mystery of the disappearing children and hopefully try to save them. So both of these books are really spooky, have really great dark atmospheres, and are just really fun to read. I mean, ghosts and retellings, I don't know, both these books are perfect for October, and I highly recommend you check them out. Recommended up till now, I think, are fantasies or have some type of fantasy element, and so the next 2 books are both fiction but still give off very spooky vibes. So the first one is a young adult thriller mystery called A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This book follows Pippa, and for Pippa's senior project, she decides to reinvestigate her town's most notorious murder. 5 years ago, a girl named Andy Bell went missing, and her boyfriend at the time, Sal, was the lead suspect. He sent a text message to the police to confirm that he kidnapped and killed her, and then proceeded to kill himself. But Pippa doesn't believe that that is actually what happened, and so she spends her senior year investigating this murder and trying to uncover what really happened 5 years ago. This book is told in a really interesting format. You have the story of how Pippa is trying to solve this mystery and her asking questions and going through her life trying to solve this, all the while there is someone actively trying to stop her from doing so. And in between these story moments, you actually get pages of her like physical notes in the book, so it's kind of like you're looking along with her, trying to solve it with her, and it's a really cool format for a mystery book. I thought the mystery itself was really well done. I feel like a lot of times in mysteries, authors try too hard to make sure that their reader doesn't guess what's going to happen, and therefore they make it come out of left field and you're like, how did we get from A to B? But in this case, I thought the mystery was really great and organic. I definitely didn't see it coming, and that's just such a mark of a good mystery novel for me. So if you are looking for something young adult, a little bit on the less scary side but still has those thriller elements, I highly recommend A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. The final book I'm going to recommend to you is actually a recent read of mine, and that is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. I so said his last name wrong, I am so sorry. So this is an adult horror mystery thriller book. Once again, I highly recommend checking out some trigger warnings before going into this. This was like my first toe dip into like intense, more adult horror mystery books, and I actually quite enjoyed it. The Maidens is about Mariana, who works as a group therapist and whose niece Zoe calls her frantic when her friend disappeared and then was found brutally murdered the next day. Mariana is drawn in to help investigate this murder, and she immediately suspects this professor named Edward Fosca, who is a professor of ancient Greece literature and who has a kind of cult following from his students. There's a very selective group of female students who kind of follow him around, and they call themselves the Maiden. And this book is Mariana trying to prove that Edward Fosca is the killer. This is super frightening. It has such great creepy vibes as you're reading it, you know, kind of like someone's watching you. It is very dark academia. It takes place at Cambridge. It's in a school. There are murders, but there are also some really interesting lessons on Greek mythology and just stories that I didn't know going into this. I especially found it really interesting because one of the plays that is consistently mentioned throughout the book, called The Duchess of Malfi, is one that I've actually read in my classes this year. So I was immediately engaged because I felt like what I was actually learning in my classes was applying to this book, and it was a really fun experience. I thought the ending was shocking. Like, it made my heart stop. Anyone around me, when I figured out like the final clue at the end, could hear me shriek. It is just such a great book. I really enjoyed it. I know some people didn't as much, but this is my first kind of dive into this genre, so I don't have much to base it on, but I really enjoyed it and I kind of want to read more of the author's work. So yeah, that is The Maidens. That is it for the books I'm going to recommend to you. Now I'm going to recommend 2 TV shows that I think are really great to watch or rewatch during the season. The first TV show I'm going to recommend is American Horror Story. American Horror Story is a 13 season long show, with each season revolving around a different creepy story. There are definitely a ton of jump scares, a ton of freaky, gory things happening in this show. Definitely check for trigger warnings because this show can be quite triggering. And I definitely have not seen all the seasons. I've only seen a few seasons, but there's this theory that each season correlates with one of the circles of hell, which I thought was a really interesting theory. You definitely don't need to watch all the seasons to understand the show. Yes, there are some common threads that go through the entire thing, but if you just want to kind of read descriptions of each season and pick which ones you like, I definitely did that because I knew some of them would be too scary for me. Yeah, that's kind of how I go into horror shows or movies. I like to read a summary of what happens and then I feel prepared to actually go watch it. My favorite seasons of American Horror Story have to be season 3, which is about a coven in New Orleans, and season 5, which takes place at this really creepy hotel and Lady Gaga is in it. So yeah, I recommend seasons 3 and 5, but of course I would definitely read about each season before you go into it, but it's definitely a really great show to watch this time of year. A bit on the lighter side, the next show I'm going to recommend is Pretty Little Liars. Now, this is kind of like a teen show, but I think there are some really great mystery aspects in it. The entire show revolves around these 4 teenage girls trying to find out what happened to their best friend who was murdered. As they try to look into her death, this mysterious person who calls themselves A starts blackmailing them with all the things they've done in the past. There is definitely a very horror aspect to this show. It takes place in this little town called Rosewood, and it can be pretty creepy at sometimes. It can be pretty scary with lots of jump scares as they try to unravel this mystery. Each season brings something new to the table. I loved all of the different theories that I had while watching it. I remember when it was coming out, I would be on Tumblr all the time with my theories about this show, about who is A, about who killed Allie. It was just such a fun thing to do, and I kind of want to rewatch it this October because it is very Halloween-y, haunted, scary. So if you want to try it or rewatch it, this is the perfect time of year to do that. So the 2 movies I'm going to recommend to you this October are ones that I'm sure you've heard of, that I'm sure that you have seen because they are classics. But just because they're classics doesn't mean I'm not going to recommend them, because these are staples of the Halloween season. First up is Hocus Pocus. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, about this pretty stupid boy who doesn't believe in Halloween and accidentally raises 3 witches from the dead who then try to steal the souls of children. It is such a fun movie. It is one of my favorites and I just love it. The next movie I'm going to recommend is The Addams Family, because who doesn't love our creepy and kooky family with fun laughs and lots of crazy things that happen to them. It is just also such a staple of the Halloween season. I have the da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da stuck in my head all month long. It is so fun. I love Addams Family and Addams Family Values. I will definitely do a double feature night at some point this month. And just everything about this movie brings me spooky, lovely vibes. And those are all my recommendations for this spooky season to get you in the Halloween spirit. As I said at the beginning of this video, leave your own recommendations down below and I will check them out. This is my favorite time of the year. It's the time where I'm happiest. It's the time I am just the most myself. So I am just so excited for everything this month has to bring. If you guys liked this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Hit the notification bell to get updates on when I post. I post every single week, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!